the Honda Civic Si, probably the most iconic tuner car ever built. Lightweight and affordable, with plenty of aftermarket support. Well, what if we took it a step further? This is my 1/25th scale Honda Civic Si, reimagined as a hovercar. This was based on a 1/25th scale Revell kit that was given to me by a follower on Instagram. And I'm going to show you how I built it step by step. So let's check out the build process. I built a Toyota Celica a couple years ago, and I didn't use the fender flares that came with it, and they're going to be perfect for this Civic. Front fender flares glued to the car at the bumper and above the wheel arches. So the front bumper is going to need to be permanently glued on. I want a nice strong bond here. So I placed some styrene at the two joints on the backside where it's not seen. And in this step, I'm scribing a line along the fender flare and then filing that area down so that it fits tight against the car. I'll fill this area in with putty later, but it's important that the surface areas have contact so that the glue can hold this tight. I'm afraid if I don't have a nice tight bond here, it'll start peeling away. Here we're doing the driver's side, scribing the line, and then filing away the parts that are interfering. Gluing the fender flares on was time consuming. I glued both ends down first and put a clamp on for quite a few hours. Let this dry. I came back a few hours later with a heat gun to try to get the plastic to soften and conform it to the body. And this didn't work very well. So when all else fails, use brute strength. I applied plenty of glue and clamped it for a few hours, and it worked very well. Nothing a little putty can't fill. And then I went ahead and did the backs same way. Plenty of glue, made sure I had a lot of surface contact, and then clamped them on for at least 4 hours. I've built plenty of hover cars over the past 10 years, and I always have difficulties finding mechanical details that fit under the wheel arches that look as if they could propel the car. The best solution I've found is to use a half of a V8 engine block and mount it up under the wheel arch and attach it to the suspension. It's the best way I've figured out so far. I mean, I've built so many of these cars, and it just provides a good base to put stuff on. And you can see when it's mounted in there, it's got enough little detail on it that you don't have to decorate too much. If you put another cover or another couple of pipes in there, you know, it's believable as some kind of a thruster. It's a good surface to mount a couple of exhaust ports to give it lift. And then we'll put some big turbines in the back. Maybe not this big. We'll shrink them down a little bit. This is an example. I've decided that the white ones are going to go in front. The reds are going to go in the rear because of the thickness of the red ones. I just feel like they're bigger, so they need to go in the back. Passenger front, same thing. Cylinder heads go down. Imagine it's flush with the bottom of the car. I imagine that's going to be pretty far up inside. I'll have a lot of play. So again, cut that off right there. Flush with the bottom of the car. And we're just going to follow the path of the wheel arch. Flush with the bottom of the car. And we're cutting it off right there. So I think what'll work is if I clean the back side of this off where the engine's glue together and put a piece of flat styrene on there. And then that flat styrene glues to the flat surfaces on these two suspension. I'm going to cut one strip of this, and I think it'll work for all 4 engine blocks since they're all about the same size. And I will make sure to reinforce this later, but I just want to get my placement. Passenger front. Mounting, don't forget we're mounting them with the cylinder head down, oil pan up, and centered. And this one, centered. I'm going to use my miter box to cut 16 pieces of styrene tube. And some of these I'm going to cut at a 45-degree angle. And we will place the smaller tubes inside the larger tubes and create some thruster ports. So I'm going to start with the fronts. And I've cut an angle on these. One of them has a 45-degree angle and one of them's got a 60-degree angle. And we're going to put these on. I am going to use a lot of glue because I want these to be held permanently. And I'm going to put the 45-degree angle in the back and a 60-degree angle in the front. And we're going to try to space them evenly on that engine block, remembering that we are going to put one of these caps on it. Looks good. 60-degree in the front, 45 in the back. Of course, you can do whatever angles you want on these. You could hit them straight out, so it's like this. Whatever angle you want. It gets to a point where it interferes with the block, it'll hit, but you understand, I'm sure. We're going to check by putting these caps on to see how they look. They also have a lot of direction control. You can turn these more under the car. So it's the jet would be coming under the car. Well, I want them to the side a little bit. Okay, working on the back. So I've done the same thing with the 4 of the 5/16 styrene tube. Some of these at 60 degrees and some at 45. And we're going to put these on. We're going to put these 3/8 styrene tube caps on. That'll complete the side thruster ports. If you're going to have a tuner, you've got to have an obnoxiously large rear wing. Found this piece. I'm looking at what I can add to the back of the car right now, to this area. I know I want to put a rear wing on here, and I found this piece, and I thought, that's an awkward looking piece, but what if? And I found the matching pair to it, matching side. Put it together, and look at that. That's going to go right there. And that's going to hold our wing. And while I've been mocking this up, I've been using the rear bumper as a mock-up wing. It's got the kind of the shape of a wing. Look at that. That looks kind of cool. So I'll make a new rear wing, but I'm going to use that support. I'm going to glue these 2 pieces of angled styrene onto the wing, and they'll help me center the wing on the new mount. I'm going to use a piece of 030 styrene rod to give a little strength to the 2 side fins. Using a small diameter styrene tube and a styrene rod, I can make a cylinder that'll fill the gap on this mount. It looks awkward with nothing inside, so I'm going to add another hydraulic cylinder to the top. And here I've added 2 small pieces of 3/16 styrene tube that'll make little boosters for the rear wing. This is a piece of styrene staircase that's used in model railroads, scenery, and I buy this often and use it as vents. As you can see, it makes a nice little detail on the wing mount. And these small rear thruster cones, they came from a Gundam kit. But one of the things I really try to do on my cars is add air intakes. I try to put them everywhere where they're going to feed into the turbines or the boosters. And these on this car, these aren't boosters. These are going to be some sort of, I don't know, some sort of mechanical device. But I am going to have some turbines coming out of here. And you got these on the side. So somehow we're going to draw air to them. And I figure the air is going to come in through the back window. So I'm going to make some kind of intake. And I've got to find something or make something that sticks out of that window that's roughly that shape to draw the air in. I use 0.02 styrene to cut a pattern out of this window. It's thin, yet rigid. It'll hold its shape well. Easy to work with. I'm going to glue a small piece of trim on it, just for a little detailed edge. I've had these yellow pieces in my inventory for a long time. I've known they would work as some kind of air duct intake, and they're going to work for this rear window. I just need to trim it to fit and conform the shape of the window. And here I am sticking to my rule, no fake vents. So I'm going to actually cut out a section underneath our ductwork so that the air would flow through, and you can see through. If you peer inside the opening, you'll see that it leads to the back seat area. In hindsight, I should have done this a lot easier by just installing the windows that came with the car and painted them black, and then put the intake duct onto the window. These 2 panels I'm forming around my X-Acto blade to get a nice curve on it. And these will be on the back end for aerodynamics. This is going to be a bottom rear diffuser. Real simple to make. Just basically put some fins on a flat piece of styrene, angled, and try to space them evenly. It's just something that was needed to fill that space in the back of the car and to give it a import look. You see that on some of the tuner cars, the rear diffuser from under the car. I'm old enough to remember a time where every import car had an aftermarket exhaust kit on it. 3 to 4 inch exhaust pipe sticking out of the back. Well, we're going to make some rear turbines. We're going to make those guys jealous. I've made around 30 hover cars over the past 10 years. I have a ton of wheel rims. I recycle these rims into these large turbines. I glue them together end to end and try to make them resemble some of the aircraft turbines I've seen online. For this Civic, we won't see the entire turbine since most of it will be hidden. I'm going to cut this piece of styrene and mount the 2 turbines to it so that I can easily remove these for painting. I'm going to add a support between the 2 turbines, and this is going to allow me to add a mesh screen that I can cover this area with. Much like that on an exotic car, some of them tend to have a mesh screen in the back. And here I've made a bracket for that rear diffuser setup I created. This bracket will give it a little bit of strength, and it looks kind of cool. I'm going to make a front air dam that sticks out a little bit. I've got some angle styrene to give it some strength. This is the bottom of the air dam. This is the top. And these are at a little bit of an angle. And this angle will help us. And then I've cut this at a little bit of a angle as well. Left this extra long because this part in the back here will contact the chassis, and I can glue it there as well. All right, so here's our top. I'm just gonna turn it upside down here. Do the same thing we did on the bottom. Much on there. Now we're just gonna try to put this on top of there. All right, here we go. That looks sweet. Love it. I love it so much. I'm gonna carve out the 2 side intakes that are right beside it. Looks really good. I have some 3/8 inch styrene square tube, and I cut a notch out of the front bumper that was the exact size of that styrene tube and then put an angle on it. And they look fantastic. Check that out. That's aggressive. And here, this wing came with the kit. I'm going to split it in 2 right down the middle. These will act as elevators to help us maneuver or possibly air brakes. I like to do this on my cars. I often put air flaps. You think these cars are moving at a high rate of speed, would need all the help they can get from flaps and air brakes. So I do try to add those whenever I can. I found some hinge-like pieces on a Gundam kit that I just bought. I often buy new kits, maybe once or one or two kits every 2 or 3 hover cars I build. And I found these hinge-like pieces. They look like a hinge, and these are going to hold this rear wing on. Just need to do a little modification. And I will glue the 2 wing halves on top. I'm not going to glue them yet because they need to be painted. And it's finally time to get rid of these ugly canisters. They've sort of been there as a placeholder. I knew I wanted to put something mechanical there. That new Gundam kit that I found came with some excellent pieces that have so much detail. And I'm envisioning a lot of plumbing lines and tubes going to these. So here you can see I'm adding some 90-degree styrene tube that I've bent to tie this into the deck. And I found a couple of other pieces on that new Gundam kit. These horseshoe looking pieces. These fit right around that 90-degree bent pipe. Gives it a cohesive look. The new Gundam I purchased came with a bunch of great parts. These 4 pieces will fit on our side thrusters. With a little modification, I can put all these tiny cone thrusters in, and you can never have enough tiny thrusters on your hover cars. And I'm just going to glue this directly to that engine block. And they're all very similar. And they help cover up that engine block with hey, another thruster on the side. Later, I'll come back and dress this area up with some segmented pipes. When it comes to hover cars, safety first. We're going to install a roll cage that has a mesh barrier that separates the driver from the components in the back. I've had this roll cage in my inventory. It fits perfectly in this car. I'm now creating a pattern on the mesh screen. I'll cut this pattern out and I'll glue it to the frame of the roll cage with some E6000 adhesive. This adhesive gives you a little time to work with it and it holds tight once it's dry. I just got this tool and I am fascinated by it. It's called the Roll Maker, and you take a piece of 2-part epoxy that's been rolled into a tube shape and you press it together between these 2 panels and roll it into a segmented pipe. It looks fantastic. This is exactly the tool I was looking for. It makes a sci-fi looking segmented tube that looks perfect in my hover cars. That epoxy sets up within a few hours, so I've bent it to shape and sprayed a little primer on it. I'm using some E6000 to glue these in place. These look amazing. That was a great purchase, the roll maker. I'll be using this on most of my hover cars from now on. Gives a really good sci-fi look. In part 2, we will then paint those segmented pipes. We'll check out the finished paint job. We'll change this soccer mom into a decal race car driver. I'll show you how I heat stain the thrusters, and I'll have a hell of a time installing carbon fiber. If you've made it to the end of the video, I do appreciate your time. Consider subscribing if you like this video. It'll really help the channel grow. If you want to see another video from my channel, please click the link above.